Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. Even those who are not fans of the Bama Nation, welcome to Tight Sports. Well, right off the bat, let's just get into it. Got a lot to go through here. Let's start off with a few words from the starting running back for, it seems like, for 17 years, Mr. Corum.
There's always been a lot of talk about it. We want Bama, but you guys are the number one team. They're number 4. Do you feel like they're going to approach it like you're the top dog, Alabama, or should they approach it that way, or should you approach it?
We're the top dog.
Yeah, right.
We are the top dog.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's how we're going to approach it.
Yeah.
We're going to approach it like we're the number 1 team, and they're the number 4 team, but they're a great team.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to go in there saying, "Oh, this is Alabama, a team that's one." No, we're that team. We've been winning. We deserve to be the number 1 team. That's how my mindset is. The committee chose us to be the number 1 team. So I'm not going to act like we're not. But Bama's a great team. So I'm gonna treat it like a great team. And so I'm super excited to play Alabama. It will be a good challenge, good matchup. But to answer your question, I'm going with the top dogs.
How does that help you guys overcome the mystique that they have? That you are the number 1 team. Just
say that again.
How does that help you overcome that whole mystique of Alabama? The fact that you are the number 1 team, that you guys are, the undefeated team.
At the end of the day, I don't think it matters. Yeah. We don't let number 1 team, number 2 team, we don't let none of that get to our head anyway.
Right.
We're just gonna go into it, like it's a good matchup, we prepare really well. But when the time comes, we'll be ready. But right now, we just gotta watch film on this plane ride. Just get ready, man. Get ready, But it didn't matter if we were 1 or 4. We knew we were gonna have to have a tough matchup. And, the committee put Alabama at 4, us at 1. And so that's it. Big Ten versus SEC. Like I said, it doesn't get better than that.
All right, now don't lose it, folks. The College Football Playoff Committee, they ranked them number 1. They are the top dogs. I like being in the underdog position. We've been in the underdog position pretty much since Texas, maybe up to about LSU, and then it kind of be like even Steven with everybody. But we're going to keep the momentum going, and we're going to remain faithful. That Coach Nick Saban and our beloved Crimson Tide will get it together and move us on to the next round of the playoffs, which would be the championship game. For right now, we're going to mosey over to College Football with Sam's page. I will put the entire link in the description below. And but I'll skip through all of the gambling stuff. You know how they roll up there in the Big Ten. I was looking at Vegas got us up by 1.5. Whatever. So they happy about that. That's great. And try to get to some of the meat and potatoes because he had a lot in there. It was like a big buffet. Sorry I'm getting this out late to you, but I was running around, chasing elves and lassoing reindeers, trying to get Santa Claus, off to a good start tonight. But anyway, let's look and see what Sam is talking about.
On Alabama at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the Rose Bowl to kick off the 2023 College Football Playoff. And this matchup here is taking up the most oxygen in the room, and maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but I think it's rightfully so, because Nick Saban is the greatest college football head coach of all time. He's the best coach in college football right now, and Jim Harbaugh is quickly climbing the ranks, and I think he is a top 4 head coach in college football right now. These 2 schools are also the only 2 playoff teams that are top 4 in ESPN's FPI, Alabama being 4th, Michigan being 1st. And these 2 teams are also the top 2 favorites to win it all, despite playing each other in the first semifinal. What that communicates is that analytics and odds makers expect whoever wins the Rose Bowl to beat either Washington or Texas in the national championship game. Grab a drink, grab food, do whatever you can to watch this video all the way through, not just so that College Football with Sam and this awesome community, the best Big Ten football community on YouTube, can get into the algorithm, but so that you can get an awesome preview and prediction of this game. But it's pitted between the 2 favorites to win it all and between the 2 teams that have, I think, the 2 best coaches in the college football playoff, though maybe there's an argument that Kalen DeBoer is better than Jim Harbaugh. But that's for a different day. We're talking about the Rose Bowl here. Now, getting down to business and talking about the matchup here, this game will be played in the Rose Bowl. Michigan, 13-0. They're number 1 in the college football playoff rankings. They're also number 1 in FPI, which means they're the highest power-rated team per ESPN. Alabama is 4th in the college football playoff rankings. They are also 4th in ESPN's FPI. They jumped to 4th from 5th after USF had that massive win over Syracuse where they toasted that pathetic ACC program. The Crimson Tide are 12-1. Their only loss coming to Texas. They're SEC champions. Michigan is the champion of the Big Ten. The Wolverines are given a 55.6% chance to win per ESPN's FPI, and the feel around this game from my subscriber base is 50-50, but this is primarily a Big Ten channel, so I understand that there is going to be a Big Ten lean here. People have said accusatorily in my comments that this is a Michigan channel. It's not.
It's not that big. 50-50 on a Big Ten channel.
Michigan channel. There are more Ohio State fans who are subscribed to me than there are Michigan fans. And if you don't believe me, look at most of my popular videos. They're either Nebraska videos or Ohio State videos. And look at the polls surrounding the game. My polls asking my subscribers to predict the winner of Michigan-Ohio State the week before it happened. All the Ohio State fans gained a bunch of confidence and came out of the forest and picked Ohio State. And I love the Ohio State fan base. I love the Michigan fan base. I'm a Michigan fan. But College Football with Sam by no means is a Michigan channel. It's a Big Ten channel that also occasionally goes outside of the bounds of the conference and looks at the entire college football landscape. That's
As you may or may not know, I just recently dropped my 100th video. And to commemorate the moment, my kids bestowed upon me a wonderful honor. YouTube doesn't care that I have 100 garbage videos, but my kids do. So they made me this awesome gift. They made me this awesome plaque, for lack of a better phrase, to commemorate the moment. And if you would, I'm gonna put it up here. If you would, we you know, I know a lot of you guys are busy, but if you could, please subscribe to this channel, because we want to eventually replace this with something. There's nothing better than this, but if you could, please like and subscribe to this channel. We really, really need it. Just please. Just, I gotta talk to that boy about that. Yeah, we did it. Hold on to your hats, folks. This is where it gets dicey.
for that game. Let's dive deeper into the position previews, looking at the different roster points. Again, I think Michigan is the best assistant coaching pool in the country. This factors in coordinators, position coaches, strength and conditioning. And Nick Saban, as good as he is, and look, he's elite. He's better than Jim Harbaugh. I just think most of Michigan's assistant coaches by position are better than Alabama's. I think Michigan's coordinators, Sherrod Moore and Jesse Minter, are better than Tommy Davis and Kevin Steele. And I think Michigan is the better strength and conditioning coach. And assistants matter. They absolutely do. Now, to a certain degree, this is an incomplete listing for Michigan because Nick Saban has an elite record. He's only lost one college football playoff semifinal. That was to Ohio State in the inaugural college football playoff, 14 playoff. Jim Harbaugh has not won a bowl game since 2015. So there's a strong argument, I think, that Alabama has staff, more so because maybe Nick Saban is that much better of a head coach than Jim Harbaugh is. But I think this staff for Michigan is absolutely incredible. I mean, look at the blue chip ratio between these two teams. Alabama is outer worldly in 4- and 5-star talent acquisition. They are. And they're outer worldly in...
I did not confirm this because I don't have that kind of time. Michigan has 2 5-stars on their team. I think Alabama was reportedly, they had 18.
NFL development. But then look at Michigan. The fact that Michigan is power rated ahead of Alabama. The fact that Michigan is even ranked higher than Alabama and has a better record. And the fact that Michigan has played more consistently than Alabama. Michigan is first in game control. They're first in average in game win probability. They're first in points per play margin. All of those important statistics with that much less talent. And Michigan still having played an elite Ohio State team, a near elite Penn State team, and fighting through injuries. That goes to show how great their staff is at developing players. Michigan might be in terms of roster development and adjusting for star talent, whether you have an abundance of it or a lack of it, Michigan might be one of the best developmental programs in the country. I give Michigan a slight edge at quarterback. I think J.J. McCarthy is a better passer than Jalen Milroe, and obviously passing matters more as a quarterback than running. McCarthy has an 89.3 QBR, 19 touchdowns, 4 picks, 2,630 passing yards. Milroe was an 83.6 QBR, which is 9th, 23 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 2,718 passing yards. But personally, I prefer a dual threat quarterback over a quarterback that is, I think in the case of J.J. McCarthy, I don't know which comparison is better. They're very incomplete, but either an extremely light edition of Joe Burrow or a different Michigan variation of Stetson Bennett, where
I don't know how. How can you give your quarterback the advantage slightly? They're separated you in the quarterback rating by like 6 points. Then you say, I like a dual threat quarterback. You know, I'm not saying J.J. McCarthy is bad, but I need like a Joe Burrow type or Jalen Milroe is about the same size as Eddie George. Okay. You know, you ever heard that thing about, you know, dogs barking at the car going down the street, barking at the wheels? I have seen it with my own eyes. Unfortunately, what happens when that dog catches up with that car? Some people don't want to tackle Jalen Milroe on a scramble or nothing else unless they can approach him appropriately. If you can get him. He's a very sly runner, very fast for his size, and that impact, if you meet him straight up, it's just not a good thing. So I'm not sure if he meant to give Michigan the advantage in this breakdown.
where you have mobility, but that's not necessarily your strong suit. Jalen Milroe is, I think, as strong as a runner as he is a passer, and he has the same upside in both categories. That's scary. I'm a big fan of dual threat quarterbacks. I personally would rather have Jalen Milroe on my roster than McCarthy.
Come on, man.
Objectively, taking out my own personal preferences, McCarthy is the better quarterback. He's more efficient. He's better in the short and intermediate passing game, and you might say, well, Jalen Milroe's better at the deep ball, and he is. But you're going to have a lot more short and intermediate passes than deep passes, won't you? And McCarthy is also, in my mind, better at getting rid of the ball quickly. Jalen Milroe has a habit of taking too long to read the field and then getting sacked because he holds onto the ball for too long. So I give Michigan quarterback. I don't think there's any doubt that Michigan has an advantage at the offensive and defensive line. Michigan.
I guess he means quarterback, not including extending plays or obtaining first downs, because this jibber jabber is crazy.
Michigan is better than Alabama at yards allowed per carry, and in terms of pressure, Alabama gets their pressure from Dallas Turner, mainly, who's a linebacker. He's a linebacker, blitzing linebacker, edge player. Yep. Michigan's traditional defensive tackles and traditional defensive ends are much better than Alabama's. And at the offensive line, Michigan's allowed around 20 sacks on the season, 18 sacks. Alabama has allowed 43, and both teams are averaging 4.3 yards per carry. And Michigan has played tougher defenses in the same way that Alabama's defense has faced tougher offenses. So I give trench play to Michigan. His defense has faced, and Michigan has played tougher defenses in the same way that Alabama's defense has faced tougher offenses. So I give trench play to Michigan. I give a running back to Michigan. Blake Corum's a 1,000-yard rusher, over 20 rushing touchdowns on the season, specifically 24 rushing touchdowns, and Donovan Edwards and Kalel Mullings each have over 100 rushing yards as well, and they will be healthy, along with Benjamin Hall. You just can't get better than Michigan at running back depth and power in the running back room. But Jace McClellan will be healthy for Alabama, and Roydell Williams will be there as well. I give tight end to Michigan with Colston Loveland and A.J. Barner, but I have to give wide receiver to Alabama with Isaiah Bond and Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Burton is averaging over 20 yards per reception right now. He has 8 receiving touchdowns and 777 receiving yards. Isaiah Bond leads Alabama in receptions with 44. He has 621 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns, and Bond has really come onto the scene later. Again, with Alabama, they are peaking. They are peaking at the right time with kind of a more wide variety in range of outcomes. Alabama against Auburn will look like bleh, like they did against Texas or like they did against Arkansas, and then against A&M, they play a close game, but they shred a good A&M defense, and against Georgia, they just own the dogs at the line of scrimmage. It's very interesting, and I'd expect Alabama to bring their best to this game. I'm going to make my prediction as if Alabama brings their best to this game. And I think Michigan will also bring their best to this game. Defensively, Alabama no doubt is better at getting pressure. They have 38 sacks compared to Michigan's 33. Michigan has 2 more fumble recoveries, 4 more interceptions. Michigan has 3 pick sixes compared to Alabama's 1, and Michigan's less turnover prone offensively and more ball hawkish defensively. Michigan, I think, tackles better. I think Michigan's more physical on the defensive side. Michigan, no doubt, has the better run defense. They're top 10 in most rushing defense categories, including rushing yards allowed per game, yards allowed per carry. And teams run on Michigan more than they do Alabama. And yet Alabama is inferior to this Michigan defense in rushing yards allowed per game and yards per carry allowed. But they have also...
Go back and look at who was running against Alabama. Look and see how many running backs, offensive linemen will be playing on Sunday. It's a difference in the Big Ten and the SEC, and these Big Ten people don't want to admit it. When this season is over, win, lose, draw, whatever, championship, I'm going to do an analysis. I'm trying to figure out, every time there's a comparison to be made as to who should get into the playoffs. Pac-10 is not better than the SEC. The ACC is not better than the SEC. But the SEC should get in over the Big 12. They never discussed the Big Ten. We automatically assume that the Big Ten should be in. And then what happens? When the last time they won a bowl game, 2015? The last time Michigan won a championship? You got 2 championships by the Big Ten, both won by Ohio State. Maybe we should have a rule, unwritten rule, that, hey, if Ohio State can't get in, just leave the Big Ten out. Let's not forget about TCU.
Faced rushing offenses like Georgia's, which was elite and probably still is, but Alabama found a way to shut them down, especially because Georgia ran on the outside way too much. They struggled against Auburn, but Auburn is a good rushing attack. Texas, they were able to limit Jonathan Brooks in that offensive line, but when it mattered, they just couldn't stop that force up front. And against LSU, you can't blame anyone for letting LSU drive up and down the field on you. That might be a better LSU offense than the 2019
all of our numbers
LSU offense. I'm going to give Michigan, this is controversial. I don't think special teams is. I think Alabama with Will Reichard and James Burnip at punter is better than James Turner and Tommy Doman. I'm going to give Michigan secondary. I think that Will Johnson and Mikey St. Ristil and Josh Wallace, Makari Page, Rod Moore, Keon Sabb, again, 16 interceptions, 48 passes defended, and 4 pick sixes for Michigan.
Let me say this, man. If I was more of a savage, I'd say I'd fight you in the middle of the street, but I won't. I'm a gentleman. Malachi Moore, Kool-Aid McKinstry, BS, that's Bachelor of Science, of which he recently earned. Jalen Key, Caleb Downs, Terrion Arnold, as young as they are, I don't think you're going to find a better group nowhere. But time will tell. When 4 of those 5 are starting in the NFL in the future, it's going to take a little while because some of them still got a long way from there. But people are saying 2 of them are first rounders. I didn't hear that in your analysis of your defensive back, but Michigan does have good defensive backs. I mean, man, if it was me, well, I just don't know how you can have an elite quarterback or a quarterback that should, you should have like a push category. I would have said quarterback is a push. And probably could have gave a push at even wide receiver. Because their receivers, they, with the leading receivers like 600 yards, they're there, but they're not impactful as they've had receivers that have been impactful before. And he said it. Julian Bond, Burden, they've had impact on games. Our defensive line is young, so is our offensive line. They're getting it together, but they've gotten better. Like I said, 10% every week since Texas, and there's a lot of time between the SEC championship and this game. Nobody handles the pre-bowl practices better than Nick Saban. It's the main reason Michigan loses. I don't know what they do. I mean, we can walk for justice. We can give out turkeys. We still go to the bowl looking awesome. Worst bowl he ever had was that thing against Utah. And it was reported he spent his whole time in that doing those 20 practices. I think they were allowed 20 practices at the time, getting ready for the next season. What happened? Championship. This guy's a little wordy, so let's kind of speed him along here. I understand. I talk a lot too. It's not a thing. We just, I don't want to keep you guys longer than I have to. I don't want to prolong the time. It is Christmas Eve.
Has the highest ceiling will prevail, because I think that both of these coaching staffs are elite enough to where they will play to their ceiling and they will bring their best. And this year, I think that's Michigan. Not only do I think that Michigan will win, I think they're going to win decisively, because Michigan has played teams in Iowa, Ohio State, and Penn State who have, wait for it, better interior defense than Alabama does. Alabama objectively does not have the same run defense that Ohio State or Penn State have, or that Iowa has. Doesn't mean they don't have inferior defenses overall. I think their defense right now is better than Iowa's because of Cooper DeJean's injury, but I still think that Penn State and Ohio State overall have better defenses. This Alabama team is great. I think they're going to find ways to get the passing game involved, but Alabama is more run-heavy than Michigan. This is something that people miss. People think of Alabama as more of a passing team than they are, because that's how they get their big explosive plays, a Jalen Milroe run or a big touchdown. But Alabama wants to run the football. They have a higher percentage of run plays than even Michigan does, which is nuts to think about. Michigan has one of the best run defenses in the country. Michigan is allowed rushing yards, but that's because they rarely blitz. Michigan typically sits in soft zone and depends on a 4 or 5 man front to get pressure or shut down opposing run games. We have not seen Michigan send a lot of pressure or blitz much. They like to play it safe at times. I think that Michigan will have not a field day with Alabama, because I think Alabama is too good. They're going to come out with a good game plan, but they will limit this Alabama ground game. And I don't think that Jalen Milroe is a consistent enough passer for him to put the offense on his back and score more than low 20s or high teens against this defense. Alabama, if they want to score close to that 30 mark, which I think whoever wins this game is going to score mid-20s, lower 30s, upper 20s, you're going to have to find a way to consistently run the football. And Michigan's defense, they faced Penn State, they faced Ohio State. Penn State has a good offensive line, and Ohio State's offensive line played one of their best games of the season against Michigan, and they dramatically improved throughout the season the same way that Alabama's team overall has. The Crimson Tide's offense will not be consistent enough to win this matchup. Meanwhile, with Michigan, I think they will run for over 200 yards. I think this game for Michigan will look a lot like the Penn State game, but more scoring on the account of both Michigan and Alabama. Penn State, their offense is lethargic. They lack explosiveness. They're great against the weak, but against the strong, they suck. Alabama has enough upside, plenty of upside in offense to score on any defense in the country, with Jermaine Burton, Bond, McClellan, and even Roydell Williams, despite not being elite running backs, are great running backs, and they're also capable pass catchers. And Milroe is one of the highest ceiling athletes in all of college football. It's nuts. He's big, arm strength, deep ball accuracy. They'll find ways to score on Michigan, but Michigan will find ways to score on Alabama in a more consistent way. There will be a few 4th down conversions. I think Michigan will average around 4.5, maybe close, but more likely under 5 yards per carry with 200 or more rushing yards, and they'll pass for about 150 as well. The stat profile will probably look similar to the Ohio State game with more rushing yards, because I think that Ohio State's defense, both at defending the pass, but more importantly defending the run, is better than Alabama's defense overall. The Wolverines' offense will power through with 4th down conversions, power football, and they will prevail. But this game, despite the fact that I think Michigan will control it, it won't be a dominant performance. And with Alabama, all they will need is 1 or 2 more explosive plays than Michigan can afford to give up, and they could win this matchup. Because I think that Michigan is going to be playing ball control, disciplined football, and they're going to be all in with their game plan. I think Michigan could effectively play a turtle game plan similar to Penn State and win, but the consequence of that game plan is if you make one mistake defensively, Alabama could take the lead, they could be right back in the game and in the driver's seat, and Alabama's defense will force punts. I'm not expecting Michigan to go on 5 drives that chew up 8 minutes of clock and Michigan just owns the entire game. It's not what's going to happen here.
Let me just say this right here. All of what he's saying is all his personal opinion, but remember, he doesn't have the Michigan channel. It's not just a Big Ten channel. Most of his people are Ohio State. So if I was doing a channel like that, and I cover things in and out of the SEC as well, but I tell you, I'm a homer. I'm a homer. And some of the analysis he had there was based on just Big Ten preferences and privileges. I don't know who they played in the Big Ten. Those Big Ten teams are bad. Probably worse than they've ever been. But I will be developing my final prediction of this game. Will it be easy? No. If we fumble, if we turn the ball over, if we play sloppy, if we don't take each play and execute according to the strategy, according to the plan, you're going to have mistakes. They are going to score. But if we make mistakes, that just gives any opponent, USF, a chance to beat you. Now, I told people from the beginning, Alabama by 1, but I want to come up with something a little bit more definitive. And that's what I'm going to do. Until then, I hope the boys keep working on the basics, the fundamentals, holding on to the ball, getting rid of the ball when you're supposed to, listening to your coach, sticking to the process. Process is one play at a time. Matter of fact, don't even let me quote it. Let me let Coach say it.
I'd always sort of been one of these guys that was a rah, emotional, inspirational kind of a guy to get the team ready to play. And there's probably one really memorable game that sort of almost changed the whole dynamics of the psychological approach that we use to motivate teams. And it happened when we played Ohio State in 1998. And they had been number one all the way through. We were 4-5, not a very good team. And we won that game. And we decided to use the approach that we were not going to focus on the outcome, that we were just going to focus on the process of what it took to play the best football you could play, which was to focus on that particular play like it had a history and a life of its own. Don't look at the scoreboard. Don't look at any other external factors. Just all your focus, all your concentration, all your effort, all your toughness, all your discipline to execute went into that particular play. And regardless of what happened on that play, success or failure, you would move on to the next play and have the same focus to do that on the next play. And that you would do that for 60 minutes in the game. And then you would be able to live with the results regardless of what those results were.
And that's all we can do. I want to thank you all for chiming in. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to those who celebrate Christmas with me. And please like this video, share it with your friends, and remember to subscribe to the channel. Roll Tide Roll.